We cannot continue simply to be prisoners of this crisis. We're preparing now, slowly, cautiously, to come out of hibernation, and I believe it's absolutely vital for us to set out the way ahead so that everyone can think and plan for the future, short, medium, and long term. Because if the COVID crisis has taught us one thing, it's that this country needs to be ready for what may be coming, and we need to be able to move with levels of energy and speed that we have not needed for generations. And I know that there are plenty of things that people will say, and we got wrong. And we owe that discussion and that honesty to the tens of thousands who have died before their time, to the families who have lost loved ones. And of course there must be time to learn the lessons, and we will. But I also know that some things went right, and emphatically right. And I think of the speed and efficiency with which we put up the Nightingales, 10 days for a hospital. I think of the drive and inventiveness of the British companies who rose to the ventilator challenge with 3 brand new production lines called into being within the space of 8 weeks, with a new model of ventilator developed in March and granted regulatory approval in weeks, and 9,500 of them now made. I pay tribute to the pace at which Oxford University managed to perform the trials for dexamethasone, the world's first demonstrably life-saving treatment for the disease. I'm in awe of the problem-crunching fury with which HMRC and the Treasury created the furlough scheme and all the other means of support. World-leading standards of protection for jobs and incomes set up in a matter of days. There were brilliant and determined individuals who more than rose to the challenge of this crisis. There were thousands and thousands who put their hearts and souls into it. And yet our debt is not just to them, it's not just even to the devotion and the love of the NHS and the care workers who saved so many lives, including my own. There was one big reason, in the end, that we were able to avert a far worse disaster, and that was because the whole of society came together to make a sacrifice on behalf of those who might be particularly vulnerable, particularly the elderly. We all knew when we went into lockdown that there would be huge economic costs, and we could see what would happen, and yet we did it. The United Kingdom, in a display of solidarity not seen since the Second World War. And so today, we must combine that energy and drive with that concentrated burst of collective willpower that protected the NHS and controlled the virus and saved literally hundreds of thousands of lives. And we must work fast, because we've already seen the vertiginous drop in GDP, and we know that people are worried now about their jobs and their businesses, and we're waiting as if between the flash of lightning and the thunderclap, with our hearts in our mouths, for the full economic reverberations to appear. And so we must use this moment now, this interval, to plan our response and to fix, of course, the problems that were most brutally illuminated in that COVID lightning flash. The problems in our social care system, the parts of government that seem to respond so sluggishly, so that sometimes it seemed like that recurring bad dream when you're telling your feet to run and your feet won't move. And yet we must also go further and realize that if we are to recover fully, if we're to deal with the coming economic aftershock, then this COVID crisis is also the moment to address the problems in our country that we have failed to tackle for decades. Because it's one of the most extraordinary features of the UK, in so many ways the greatest place on earth, that we tolerate such yawning gaps between the best and the rest. We have some of the best and most productive companies in the world, and yet we are not as nationally productive as many of our global competitors. We have the world's most brilliant medical minds, the world's best pharmaceutical companies. Our doctors, our treatments are the best in the world. And yet we have so many millions who have to wait for too long to see their GP, even before the new waiting lists produced by the crisis. We have umpteen fantastic, globally outstanding universities. And yet too many degree courses are not now delivering value, and for a century we've failed to invest enough in further education and give young people the practical training and further education they need. We have a capital city. London was, is, will be, in so many ways, the capital of the world. Great respect to Andy. Theatre, finance, tech, restaurants, you name it. London leads the world. And yet too many parts of our amazing country have felt left behind, neglected, unloved, as though someone had taken a strategic decision that their fate did not matter as much as the metropolis. So I want you to know that this government not only has a vision to change this country for the better, we have a mission to unite and to level up. And it's the mission on which we were elected last year, and we have a plan. And in advancing that plan now, I just serve notice that we will not be responding to this crisis with what people call austerity. We're not going to cheese-pear our way out of trouble, because the world has moved on since 2008. And we not only face a new and in some ways a far bigger challenge, and I can tell everybody, businesses, that next week the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, will be setting out our immediate plan to support the economy through the first phase of the recovery. But this moment also gives us a much greater chance to be radical and to do things differently, to build back better and to build back bolder. And so we will be doubling down on our strategy. We will double down on levelling up, if you can make sense of that. And when I say level up, I don't mean attacking our great companies, or I don't mean impeding the success of London, far from it, or launching some punitive raid on the wealth creators. I don't believe in tearing people down any more than I believe in tearing down statues that are part of our heritage, let alone a statue of our greatest wartime leader. I believe in building people up, giving everyone growing up in this country the opportunity they need. Whoever you are, whatever your ethnicity, whatever your background, and there are certain things that are indispensable for that opportunity. Hospital you're born in, schools you go to, the safety of the streets where you grow up. And this government has not forgotten that we were elected to build 40 new hospitals. And we will. Matt Hancock is setting out the list in the next few days, and that is just the beginning. We will continue and step up the biggest ever programme of funding the NHS. And we won't wait to fix the problems of social care that every government has flunked for the last 30 years. We will end the injustice that some people have to sell their homes to finance the cost of their care while others don't. And we're finalising our plans, and we will build a cross-party consensus. We want to look after those who have looked after us. And at the same time, we will build the foundations now for future prosperity, to make this country a Britain that is fully independent and self-governing for the first time in 45 years, the most attractive place to live, to invest, to set up a company, with the most motivated and highly skilled workforce. And so we're investing massively now in education, with over £14 billion for primary and secondary education between now and 2023. and today with a new 10-year school building programme, beginning now with £1 billion for the first 50 schools and a vast £1.5 billion programme for refurbishing our dilapidated FE sector, dilapidated in many places, not here, of course, because it's time that the system recognised that talent and genius are expressed as much by hand and by eye as they are by a spreadsheet or an essay. So when I say unite and level up, when I say build up people and build up talent, I want to end the current injustice. That means a pupil from a London state school is now 50% more likely to go to a top university than a pupil from the West Midlands. And that is not only unjust, it is such a waste of human talent. We will unleash the potential of the entire country.